Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.
This is, I was supposed to be having a quiet, relaxing evening in front of Strictly Come Dancing.
We do apologise. Right, we'll get to it. So, 3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing, episode 136. And Merry Christmas. We're joined by Jack Burnicle. This will be going out, I think, 2 days after Christmas. So I'm very, very happy with
this. This is the most un-Christmassy Christmas episode we've ever done. Now, bear in mind, I've bigged that up far too much. Last year we had a bit of tinsel and a hat, but I feel really underdressed right now. So there we go. So thank God we've dragged you out the house to give the people what they want. Our own Christmas present, Jack Burnicle. Thank you so much for being on.
I'm surprised that you could make this work on such a slope. Like, we're dropping straight down to the banks of the Mersey here.
And I know.
You know, we are on a bit of a slant, aren't we?
It's a lovely patch down here, mind, isn't it? And like a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
It is.
Very
lucky. And we were just chatting just before we came on air about it, because the last time we had you on the podcast, we actually recorded it in your living room.
Yes.
And so this is the first time you've been in the studio. We had this kitted out by Andrew Lund. We're having a bit of a laugh. Go on.
Well, first, I'd like to tell Andrew / Alexander Lund how much I've been enjoying his Garamond typeface up there, but also the fact that we kept on. There was an Alexander Lund, I think he was Scandinavian, who was racing the European Superstock 1000 Championship, and we kept calling Andrew Alexander, getting them mixed up. And typically, I never unmixed them really, and I got an irritated email, an apparently irritable Andrew, claiming that he wanted to be called by the right name, and he wasn't Alexander Lund. Right?
Well, I'm actually out with Lundy. I'm really good friends with him. I'm out on the trials bikes tomorrow. So
are you?
Yeah.
Oh, happy trialling.
You know when you messaged him about who we've got on next? Has he got my name right this time?
Yes, Andrew, I have.
Good man, sorted.
And can I just say, it's so nice to see you. I haven't seen you for a good few months now. People have missed you, Jack. People have missed you.
It's been all that happened. I mean, I got such lovely texts even and like messages of condole. It was like I was passing away, and all that I had was I'd got a bit of a chest infection, and it was a cough. It sprouted a cough that wouldn't go away, and I kept saying to the lady doctor and then the bloke I saw after that, look, this is me living. I need to get this sorted so I can get back on air. And first it was Donington. Donington came and went. The people, the BSB crew, bless them, were saying, man, we need you back for Brands Hatch. And I was thinking, yeah, Brands Hatch, we'll be back for Brands. And it didn't happen because I was still coughing. And that's all it was. I coughed, but I did get back too late for Brands, but for the last 4 rounds of an epic Multicross World Championship. So I did the last 4 rounds of that.
At least you got back to work, because the last thing you need in this day and age is a cough.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
When you're on the high
street.
I tell you what, we started the ball door, and I was starting to cough then, and some draconian woman had me thrown out of the building. We were down at the London studios of Discovery, and some HR lady obviously thought that I was riddled with COVID, and she sent me on my way. I just had to leave the premises.
Mm-hmm.
Did 2.5 hours with Terry Brymer, and then got told to leave. So that was as far as I got into the 24 hours. So, which is a shame, because I enjoy the world endurance stuff, and I missed the last round of that as well. So I made a right cobblers of this, or rather, the cough made a right cobblers at the end of the season. That was 7 weekends.
Jesus, and so it was just the end of a chest infection for that then?
That's all. And I was given, you see, I never take anything. I'm not an ill person. So I was given antibiotics, and they didn't make any difference. So, and it was like, she thought, oh, well, it'll go in time. No, that's not good enough. I want it to go now.
That's the same for, as for us riders, when we go to, like, say you've got a problem with your knee, and the usual protocols of like, just rest for 6 weeks. And it's
that's right. No.
It's so important. And I guess it's exactly the same for commentators. A few weeks ago, I had a cough, and I was dreading. We had like a massive day on the podcast. We had Roger Marshall in the morning, and then Guy Martin, and as I was driving down, I could know when you've got a tingly cough, and I'm thinking, I did a COVID test to make sure that I definitely didn't have COVID, And then I'm thinking, oh God, but do you know, with these microphones, when I needed to cough, I was going over here and like coughing into the sidewall, and I still had a guy message on the YouTube like, how unprofessional coughing down the mic. I'm like, I wasn't, like, I was doing my best not to, but it's one of them
someone
things.
commented on the YouTube channels saying how unprofessional the cough
Something
is.
like, yeah.
Listen, there's nothing professional about this. Actually, there is something professional about this. This is a really nice little hut you've got here.
Well saved.
It's really nice.
Saved.
Alexander would have got really pissed off if you just really dobbed a minute there. It would have been handwritten in blood.
Do you know, in terms of in the modern day and age, and everyone's on social media and stuff, people are used to sort of catching up with people and things, where because you're not on any social media,
I know
the fact that, you know, like literally,
I couldn't cough up for myself, could I?
Yeah, well,
I couldn't defend myself
from the BSB paddock. It's just, you know, people were aware that you were not on air because you like had some sort of illness or like some sort of like a cough or whatever.
And it's amazing how it kind of snowballs into a life-threatening disease.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, nobody, and like people have been coming to me and saying, "Hey, have you heard how Jack is?" type of thing, and I've got absolutely no idea. So it's obviously brilliant to have you on the podcast, really nice, but it's just nice to see and have a catch up.
To be honest, I kept walking down the front looking for a canoe, thinking it was an insurance scam yet again. You know what I mean? I'm thinking he's going to turn up with his missus in Portugal with a new land too.
This isn't Seaton Carew, mate. I may have a major family gravestone in the churchyard of Seaton Carew Parish Church, but this is not Seaton Carew.
Good man.
So if you, with not being on air for BSB, do you still watching? Have you been keeping your finger on the pulse?
Well, actually, they Eurosport themselves, the only thing they've ever given me in their lives, really, except for free clothing, has been a 3-month subscription to the Eurosport player, so I could watch everything that was going on the Eurosport player.
Hold on, 3 months?
Yes. That was long enough.
How many years of work have you put in the Eurosport?
It just right now, it's 30 years since I did my first.
So that accumulated to 3 months. Oh, well, that works out. Yeah, 30 years, 3 months.
You've been working for Eurosport for 30 years.
They're very. It was in autumn of 1991 that I got a phone call from them because Julian Ryder and Keith Ewan couldn't do that Helsinki Supercross that they were going to show live, and they thought I would be someone who would know a bit about Supercross, and they were skiving off to Sky Television to see if they could get some work with Sky. And so Keith and Jules put me up for it, which was all well and good. But then you had to go to it's a French company. It was a French company then, so you had to go over to Paris to their studios on the left bank to do the show, with no direction at all. I mean, I was completely in the dark as to how it all worked. And I went over there and found it was a Supercross in Helsinki. And aside from Billy Lyles, there wasn't. I didn't know any of the Americans. There were strange, unknown people, and so all the background I had on it went to naught, really. So I just battled my way through. It was a baptism of fire.
And how did that go? What was your review after that? Who did you have?
Well, the thing is, no one took any notice, really, or you didn't get anything like a review. You just hoped you might get a job next time around.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Do you know, in like the early 80s, what sort of viewing figures would like say like something like that, like a Supercross event?
I've absolutely no idea. I have no idea. I mean, I think Eurosport had only been going a couple of years then, so it had started right at the end of the 80s. And I mean, viewing figures are interesting things because I don't know how they work them out. I know that in recent times, the last 2 years, we have struggled a bit with British Superbikes compared to the time before, because since Discovery bought Eurosport, it's gone out on different platforms. Instead of being consistently found on Eurosport 2, suddenly it would disappear onto Eurosport Player or Quest.
Right.
And I know that people who are on social media, like the two Jameses, Whittam and Hayden, were getting an awful lot of flack from the fact that people couldn't find where it was. But the only information I had was my mad keen local garage man, Neil, who said, who does track days and things and loves it. And he actually gave up one weekend on finding British Superbikes. He thought we mustn't be covering it because he couldn't locate it. So and also the minor factor also is you pay for Eurosport and then you have to pay again to get Eurosport Player. Do you see what I mean? So there were indiscretions going on really that were annoying people. And as Witt has always said, the British Superbike viewers tend to be of a certain vintage where they don't do all that stuff. They just like it to be on the telly, and they switch it on, and there it is.
Yes,
and suddenly it was being shifted around, so they weren't that clear.
I mean, even if you, I know what you're saying,
and that was definitely slightly damaging our viewing figures over the last 2 years.
Do you have any idea what viewing figures Superbikes?
No, I know that we.
If he was on commission, I bet you'd know.
Yeah, probably, but we're roundly not.
1 pence per viewer. Let's have a look at them viewers. And let's have.
It counts for naught. I don't know, 200,000, 250 perhaps at its best. That kind of, or that might be complete bollocks. I don't know. We just have to.
I remember mentioning this to you last time, but you are literally. I don't get starstruck by anyone, but you were the first person. Still are, Jack, the only person I get starstruck by because my dad recorded Paris per se when David. I could tell this story a million times, and obviously, if everyone goes back to our first podcast for you, they'll get the same story. And you know what? I'm going to say it again. Like David Villeman, like he just stepped in the 250s against McGrath, and McGrath was a proper fat lad, 252 strokes. It was proper,
which you no longer are.
Well, I know, but he thin. Funny enough, when he went to the latter end of his career, he lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But like we're talking Paris per se, he was doing knacks and jumping over. He would adjust his clutch mid-air. You know what I mean? Just to pop it out of certain corners so he could drag it through certain bits of the whoops, and then he was coming over the final jump and just adjusting the clutch. I think that's proper motocross. He had blonde highlights. He looked like a right tit. He looked absolutely fine, but he could ride a bike. And my dad recorded it on the video, and I used to watch at it every night going to bed. You literally talk me to sleep every night. And you know what? It's absolutely meant I had the freak. Well, that's how I actually got into BMX because of that. Because I couldn't afford motocross, nothing like that.
Right,
and do you know what BMX stands for?
No.
Bicycle motocross.
Right.
That's what BMX actually stands for. Yeah. So I went, how do I get into motocross? I got a BMX. And it was like the freestyle element. And actually a few of the riders used to go do freestyle.
That was very much the routine of a few. In fact, your very own northeasterner, Brad Anderson, who's 40 years old and has finally announced his retirement, he got in through BMX. He was world or European BMX champ when he was about 7.
Really?
And then moved on to motocross from there.
Right. Would he be? We've been recommended a few times to get him on as a guest. Would you recommend that? Have you interviewed him before?
Oh, that should be entertaining enough. Yeah, you lads will be able to understand him at least. That would be a good start.
So, do you know of your career at Eurosport? What disciplines have you commentated on other than motocross, superbikes?
Jesus.
Well, everything they've covered on 2 wheels. Enduro, hill climb, speedway.
What's the most boring one?
Trials, indoor trials, and the outdoor world championship stuff. The most boring one.
Yeah, to commentate on the work on.
There isn't a boring one, really, to be honest. I suppose.
Hill climb.
No, there isn't. There isn't. Probably, if I was to be unkind, I'd say trials because it was the slowest moving at times in between kind of sudden explosions of action. It tends to be a bit tenuous, but they've all been good. They've all been good.
The sort of sporting sense, even if it's not as fast and as adrenaline filled, the sporting sense, it still can be very tense, can't it?
Yeah, very.
I'm rubbish at it, but I absolutely loved getting over it out in the fresh air. Me and a few of my mates, and
you're going to do it tomorrow, are you? I mean, right now we're exactly a week short of Christmas Day. So do you know what they've done? You two have dragged me from a quiet evening watching the final of Strictly Come Dancing in our house. However,
no, we saved you, mate.
We saved you. Okay.
No, man.
Fortunately, my good lady's arrived. She's the dancing aficionado, so she's able to stop inside and watch it. You haven't dragged her out.
Yeah,
she's our next interview. So how did Strictly go? tell us before you tell Jack what the crack is there.
So, in the last few months, what have you been keeping occupied with?
Well, I was desperate to get back on the mic as soon as I could. So as soon as I felt fit enough, I must confess that the last 4 rounds of the World Motocross Championship we did from the studio down in London, and I went down to do the first of them. No, I was going to do the last 5, and I realised I wasn't well enough to do the one that was 5 from the end, and I reluctantly chucked that over to dear old Roger Warren, and he lives an hour from the studio, so he was quite happy to belt up and do it. And then I went in. They were running them a kind of compressed season, so we were doing Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday at the same venue, and then taking a break and doing Sunday, Wednesday was the finishing thing at the next venue, all in Italy. And I had to quit on that one, but I was determined to go midweek, and I wasn't really up to it. But once you get on air and the adrenaline starts to flow, it's a bit like racing. You just get manic and you start, and you're away. So that went well. The last 4 rounds. I mean, those guys, that was a sensational championship. I mean, those 2 fellas, Romain Fèvre and Jeffrey Hurlings, went into the last race level on points. So one or the other was going to win it, like somehow. And Hurlings typically got a less than stellar start, but when he passed Fèvre, he properly he did a double stuffing, and you could see him glance over his shoulder as if to say, just making sure that you're up against that bank and you're stopping there, son. And so Red Bull KTM turned out victorious. But for Hurlings to do that in a season where he'd suffered an injury early on, lost a couple of rounds through getting jumped on, that fractured his shoulder blade.
Did you see that crash?
No. Did you see that crash when Ivo Botticelli, as I like to call him, leapt on? He kind of overjumped and landed on Jeffrey's back, and yet Hurlings won that race, but he won it doing himself quite a bit of damage because the impact had cracked his shoulder blade. And he's an animal. He's an animal.
It's by far the hardest discipline in the planet. It without a doubt, 100%.
Yeah. And the pace at which those guys are going through deep ruts and things is pretty alarming. And Hurlings, the battle was between him and Fèvre and Tim Geiser, the reigning champion at Honda. And so you had 3 different manufacturers: Kawasaki, KTM, and Honda involved. 3 different nationalities: France, the Netherlands, and Slovenia. It was epic stuff. But in the end, the right man won it. Hurlings is extraordinary. He's the fastest man on the planet at that time.
In terms of, like say, MotoGP, the Spaniards and Italians dominate internationally. Yeah. What in motocross? Who are the most dominant nations?
It's got to be the Belgians.
No, not any longer. No, right. It's not the Belgians. No, Belgium used to be the powerhouse. The very initial powerhouse of motocross was the United Kingdom and Sweden. When the World Championship first, the European Championship morphed into the World Championship in the end of the 50s, it was very much the Swedes who were the first dominant factor. And then the Belgians became very much the dominant factor after that. Right. De Costa and Joel Smets and Stefan Everts and stuff. But the Frenchies were coming in. The French were especially off the back of Jackie Vimon, took a lot of them in hand, really. He inspired people, and Jean-Michel Bayle had a huge influence as well by going across to the States. So a lot of French guys, like you mentioned, David Villemin. Villemin finished second to Jeremy McGrath in the US Supercross Championship. You know, he would have won the damn thing if it wasn't for McGrath being there.
McGrath won it 7 times in a row, wasn't it?
No, not in a row, but 7 times.
It was 7 times champion, and you just say, but the mad thing is, you're like, I have this conversation. We've got a mate called Sugar Tits. It's a long story, Jack. He's a great lad, but the proper his little laddie Hayden Stat he's so fast on a motocross bike. He's only 11-year-old. Yeah. So we talk about motocross all the time, and it's something that I always wanted to get into, and I know you hold it really close to your heart. Motocross, it's your number one. But we were having the chat, and it's amazing how the Americans don't dominate more. Like, their Supercross series is so strong during the winter, and everyone goes to them. It's the more commercialized aspect of it, and the Americans do that very, very well. But their national stuff, you'd think they would be, well, the leading force. Yeah, but you'd think you would. Tracks like Glen Helen.
It's really down to Hurlings. Hurlings can go over there and beat them.
That's class.
Did you see that new thing that they tried on a
It was. By the way, can I just say it was Bale who first did that? He was the first guy who went over there and hammered the Yanks at their own game. Jean-Michel Bale won all their 3 national championships in 1 year, which no American had ever done. Ricky Johnson came close, but no American had actually achieved that, and he did that in 1991, and that was a huge breakthrough.
You see, in every sport you have conditioned environments, so it's like the Spaniards and the Italians are so dominant because they're training at such a young age, before they can walk, they're on a motorcycle in car parks and tarmac and disciplines.
Yes, and that's another nationality that does well off-road. Italy is big there.
That's it. And the mad thing is, you just think, like, I keep referring back to it, you think America with the money and the estates and the actual vast land, and you think, on paper, if you pointed at someone and said, like what were you just saying, you'd think the Americans were better. So is it just because the Belgium, what conditioning have they done, or are they just more dedicated to motocross than the Americans? Or the Belgians, the Europeans, should I say?
The Europeans. No, the Americans aren't particularly interested in coming to Europe. They have a very full season of their own, and they can make a lot of money racing that. Supercross and the outdoor, it's followed by the outdoor nationals, a brief break, and then they're back onto Supercross right at the beginning of the year, usually at Anaheim. So there isn't any break for them, and they prefer not to come to Europe. If an American comes to Europe, then since the days of Brad Lackey and Danny Laporte, it's like a full scale, a proper attempt at coming to Europe and really making it work for you and doing it year on year for a while. And there are Americans who have done that, but not very many who have done that.
But it's mad because the Europeans don't have like a supercross scene. But like you say, the Americans have done it for years. Like through the summer, they're training, like practice all the time. Then in the winter, they're going into supercross. Like I say, and then it's almost like having a break for them lads seems to work.
Have you seen that new supercross training thing in Sheffield?
Aye.
You might not have seen
No,
that.
I haven't seen it.
So they've built an indoor
Supercross.
Yeah, they have had something like that in Sheffield.
And have you seen there's a Supercross? I'll have to do with it, Nick.
It doesn't work. We've had a break, ladies and gentlemen, between the last bit and this bit when they accused me of conking things out with the batteries that weren't flat.
Because you wouldn't have been smelling before, and then I could just see like a new video coming in.
So keep it playing. Let's keep going.
The Sheffield, they've built like a purpose indoor thing where people can just pay. They used to race at Supercross in Sheffield years ago, but there's like a practice track.
I used to host the events.
The full-on practice track. Yeah. Have you also seen that new thing that they try to do at a horse racing track, like a half a mile thing or a quarter, whatever it was, where they race motocross bikes?
Okay.
Have you seen that with big jumps? No. So did you see Billy Bolt and Tommy Searle was there, and Graham Irwin was there. Graham Irwin won by a mile, I think. It was like a parade, I think, but just to see if it would work.
Yeah.
But on like it looked mad.
Where did they do it?
I'm not sure which track it was at, but I just seen a little video of them like doing these huge jumps. But obviously, it's just completely flat, and absolutely flat out round the corners. That
sounds great.
I tell you what, before we move off
that sounds almost as good as sand racing when it used to be held in the northeast at Seaton Crewe and Saltburn and Redcar.
Yeah. It's sand. I've done 2. I went to Haverick, right? I went to Haverick racetrack, right? Yeah. And I went with me mate Sugar. He took us there. I tell you what, sand is just the hot. Nah, I can't. You have to be a good motocross rider to ride sand. That is the absolute outright truth. It's the most exhausting thing ever. And any good motocrosser just says, "Oh, sand's mint." It's like, well, I know where I stand with my motocross, 100%. But I tell you what, before we move off the motocross side of things, have you seen Guy Martin's? Got a new track. Well, it's not a new track. He's revamping the Louth track. Where is it? It was the Honda test track.
Thorsway MX. It's the one at. It's called Thorsway MX, but it's at what's the place called?
It's not too far from Guy.
Okay.
It's okay. So it's where Honda used to do the test, and it was like a GP track back in the day.
We went into that area way back in the late the middle late 80s for a British Championship that was called off because of dust. But I don't know whether that was the track that you're talking about.
They've done a phenomenal job. They've got basically the best track builders in the country in, and obviously it's in like a massive valley. And it looks absolutely unbelievable. The people that have like tested there have said it's like as good as anywhere.
Really?
So his idea is it's like Guy Martin and his other half have bought the track, and they're only using it for GPs. So it's not going to be a practice track or not. It's proper. It's going to be green, mate.
They said the goal is to run a GP there, but they're only doing their own events. Like they're not doing just like practice days or anything. They're just doing like
So the track's going to be mint at all times. He's talking about building like a full like garages and like full. Bringing it up to like full on spec,
right?
Like full commentating booths and everything. Oh, it's going to be brilliant. And like Billy Bolt was there, Tommy Sills was there. There was a fair few like top lads, like Chrissy was saying, testing the track, and the smiles on their face. You'll have to get yourself up. But I'm definitely wanting to go watch anyway. I'm going to try and wrangle some tickets off them. But
have you got any nice plans over the Christmas?
No. Of course I have. Yeah. I'm going. My daughter and my two grandkids live about, and the husband live about 15 minutes walk around the prom onto the open sea with a view across Liverpool Bay and the Irish Sea. So we were invited around there Christmas Day. So a week today. Very nice.
Fantastic.
I don't have to cook the food either.
Oh, beautiful.
Ticking all the boxes for Christmas. There we go.
Have you got any nice plans over Christmas?
Nah, not one. Not one, Chrissy. I'm just there.
But I thought you'd probably find out where your woman and her brother went tonight. A nice place that you could perhaps go on Christmas Day.
I know it was terrible. There's me going, where should I go for food? I'm like, Chrissy, talk to Lauren there, will you? Just handed the photo. I'm like, mate, I'm a Wetherspoons, a guy who goes to the club. Now, there's a huge difference between the club and the club.
I see.
A huge difference. Yeah. I'm that kind of fella.
You know, one of the things I'm most missing at the moment is live music.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly a live music freak, but I'm of an age where there's still people around of my age performing the real performance, you know, and I just love going to see stuff. And you know, I date back to seeing people like Jimi Hendrix and Bob Marley and stuff like that. And these days there are. I actually like smallish venues, intimate venues, and I just love the sort of people who show up now and then. People like Albert Lee and Andy Fairweather Low and the Manfreds, who kind of date back to the 60s and 70s, you know. And I love picking up on that stuff. And we can't do it at the moment.
No. Do you know if you could go and see anyone in the world right now that is performing, who would you pick?
Right now?
Yeah, one. You can only pick one.
Like say tomorrow night, you can just.
What would it be after someone? Would it have to be someone alive?
yeah, like that. You could possibly go and see type of thing.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's really tricky. That is really tricky. Who have I not seen or is around who I'd like to go and see now? You'll have to leave me with that one. I'll come back to it.
Do you mean you can't do it with like the COVID job? Is that what you mean? At the moment?
Well, that's part of the problem. I mean, right now we have a great local theatre that has had some remarkable people in. I mean, I remember my days of really enjoying music were my Leeds College of Art days, and then the subsequent 20 years in London, where there was a really vibrant music scene that you could be in the back street of a pub one week, and at the Finsbury Park Astoria, the Rainbow the next. It was great, absolutely great. The Hammersmith Odeon and Palais and things, and then. And up here, we've got a place called the Floral Pavilion Theatre around the seafront. And just now and then, amidst all the kind of bullshit that goes on there, you get really good stuff. You know, we've had genuine Tamla Motown superstars come along there, and people like Fairweather Low and the Manfreds, and they've at the moment they've got people like the Zombies and who else there's someone else who's lined up at the moment. Someone really so good that I've forgotten their bloody name.
I beg your inspiration. They're an inspiration.
I beg your pardon. The Wilco Johnson Band, and you see these guys go back a long way, and I'd like to get to see them, but we don't know what the situation is right now, and whether we'll still be able to go into theatres at this moment.
I'm the same. I absolutely love a bit of live music, and this year I was really lucky to see a few of my favourite artists. You know, Sam Fender.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to see Sam Fender at that was a big outdoor thing in Newcastle. Do you know, just behind St James's Park, the big.
Sam Fender did a really good program on telly very recently on BBC 4. In which he was
on BBC4.
Well, the reason that he put him on because he was singing the praises of the leader of the Fog on the Tyne Boys.
Oh, right.
Who was the lead singer? Who's no longer with us? Who was the lead singer with Lindisfarne? Who was it?
Gaza sang "Fog on the Tyne," didn't he? Fog on the Tyne, all mine.
Not the original one. But Sam Fender was saying how good the guy was, and it was because we saw.
Oh, in fact, I know that documentary. I did listen to that because he was saying there was a bit I loved about it where he was saying he never really got recognised because he sort of stayed in the northeast.
And he was very much a northeasterner, and he's written good songs, and that sounded interesting.
I see Jerry Cinnamon. I bet that's not really your cup of tea, is it?
Yeah, probably not.
So I went to see him.
He's good. I'm a big fan of it. Like proper unique style of writing. But I'll tell you what,
I like Jake Bugg of the present crop. Jake Bugg's he's a sensational guitarist as well as a good songwriter.
Do you play anything yourself?
I used to play because my dad was a fabulous musician up in the northeast there on telly and radio and stuff, and he was. I was piano, trumpet, violin, briefly, recorder. A variety of things, but I didn't really keep them up.
Man of many talents.
I was about to say, because you were very open in the first time we interviewed you, how you're a sports fan, period. There's no particular discipline. You really open to every sport and obviously and being so heavily in a massive part of the infrastructure in motorsport, period. You never raced yourself, you never did that sort of thing. So it's do you regret not going down the music route a bit more kind of thing? Or? It's interesting how you didn't follow that as well.
I think you need to want to be moved to do it, don't you? And and I think the old man pushed perhaps a bit too hard, and there might have been some rebelliousness there. I think because he chose it as a working class family in West Hartlepool. He chose to go that route. He was self-taught as a pianist, inspired by Fats Waller, and his whole musical thing was based on sheer enthusiasm, on just his love of music. And also he had people around him that, oddly enough, he's had some who were musicians as well, and there were quite a little cluster of them that grew up together, really. Amazing.
That's class. So what did your dad do for a living? Was he
actually put. I've got a lot of his stuff on tape and CD and stuff like that. I can listen to it quite a lot from his concerts and obviously not just the Stan Burnicle singers and the Columbus singers and the other stuff, but individual turns that he used to be pressed into doing because people were keen to hear him. So it was all good, and then it includes some speeches he used to give, and he did mention in one of them, I remember, I became a chemist because there was a chemical plant on the doorstep, because there was ICI in Billingham. That was pretty handy for becoming a chemist, so he became a chemist. So he worked in the labs there and then sort of clambered up to being some kind of agricultural research librarian that was and he didn't really want to do any more than that because he had plenty of time. They had a great theatre, so he could write stuff that was performed there, and he just liked the whole setup, really. So he never became professional. He just did amazing stuff, but just did it himself. Mm-hmm. And obviously performed it there, mainly in the Northeast.
Are you aware about Fred Clark retiring? Do you know
I am,
about that?
Yeah. I was, someone recently actually completely surprised me by saying, "Why don't you apply for Fred Clark's job?" I said, "Oh, crikey, don't think I'd be able to talk for that long over a whole weekend."
that lad has a gift.
He definitely has a gift.
No, he can. If they're commentator failure, he could be a cracking scuba diver without the gear, couldn't he? Because he can hold his breath for a kind of, you know what I mean? Off you go, son.
Have you been up in the commentary for them?
Briefly. Oh, not with him, just briefly. Oh, there was one time at Cadwell Park, he commandeered me, but only briefly.
He stands up for hours and hours, and you can just, without he'll just, it's amazing. And when you think of all of the races that he's covered, I mean, like we were talking before, like yourself, 30 years is like a hell of a long time, isn't it? But, Fred's, and like I think the last British Grand Prix was the first one that he hadn't commentated on for like a string of like, I can't remember the exact number of years.
Back into the 70s.
Yeah. And it's going to be odd, isn't it? I mean, for most people in the paddock, it's like the voice of British racing, isn't it? Right. Period.
What has been described as the authentic voice,
And there's been a few occasions, where we've had riders that have passed away, and like very sort of poignant events over the last, say, 10, 20 years.
And Fred has quite movingly hosted them.
Fred's always he's like the sort of grandfather of the paddock, isn't he? And he takes that role as being any sort of occasion like that, he heads, and like it's almost like not like a headmaster at school type of thing. He's like it's going to be sort of odd.
I didn't know that until I picked up Classic Bike today, and there was a feature on him. I didn't know that Paul Smart had passed away. It came as a complete shock to me. It doesn't seem like 5 minutes since I saw him and Maggie at probably at Brands.
It's been I was telling you, with not being on Facebook, but there's been some beautiful tributes, and obviously everyone's been sharing memories. And down at the NEC, there was a beautiful tribute on the Jakai stand. And I guess just like a huge character in the sport again.
Massive.
And in terms of the future of your job commentating, do you know where you stand at the moment with?
I do, kind of, pretty much. Yeah. I got a phone call from Will Brooks at Eurosport at the beginning of last month. In fact, in between, when I still had a couple of motocross Grand Prix to do, I think, or at least one left to do, and. He just rang me out of the blue to say that my services wouldn't be required next year, that because they were taking British Superbikes we're going in a different direction, he mumbled. So that was it, really. And also there's a lot of confusion at the moment about where Eurosport lies within Discovery. There's a talk of a Discovery takeover of Warner Brothers. There's all sorts of major things going on, and Eurosport, being a lovely word, this collapsed into Discovery. So we all the commentators are a bit at a loss. I mean, I'd like to carry on doing the motocross Grand Prix and the World Endurance Championship stuff next year, but right now we're a bit unsure because of we've always been freelance, and they're imposing something else on a load of commentators, 45, 50 commentators of all different sports who don't wish to be. Who wish to carry on as freelancers. Mm-hmm. So we don't know what's going to happen.
So is that the end of an era for the VSP?
Well, if you describe it as the end of an era, it is where I personally am concerned. Yeah.
And how long have you been covering VSP?
Since 2007, I did it one year with ITV before Eurosport took over, and prior to that, from 98, I'd done World Superbikes as well. So 24 years of world and British activity.
It's a long stretch, and
it is actually
because it's not been announced that it's not like a thing.
No. Well,
it's almost just like being kind of pushed aside, and like
that's
not
the way Discovery work. They're not. They call right now. They're calling the commentators workers, and we've. It's a weird thing. They want the commentary team to become kind of employees of the company. It's just unfortunate. It's just not being handled very well at the moment.
Mm. Yeah, it's a shame because obviously they're like.
I don't know whether that applies to BSB. I mean, right. The whole BSB crew, who are lovely people, great people to work with. I'll miss enormously, and they that whole on-site operation seems to be quite independent. So I think they should be fine just to stay as they are.
Mm. So, because like you told us this, like I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm shocked you told us this beforehand, and I'm as gutted now as I was there. It's such a part of this sport. It's sports, motocross, the motorsport industry, and I'm gutted. So on. I don't have to. Sorry, sorry, you'd be feeling twice as bad as me. 3 times this is your situation. I'm fully aware of that. But no, I'm gutted.
Just seems a bit of a shame, for like such a long spell. And there'll there's like tens of thousands of people that, you know, I mean, I see loads of people have been asking me about you, and because you're not on social media as well, nobody knows how you've been and like what the score is.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was letting so many people down. I should have let somebody know, shouldn't I?
Well, no, it was Matt. Well, this has come like, obviously we fly by the seat of our pants period anyway on this show.
So you do as a commentator live on air, mate. That's that's the one thing you could think you could slightly relax from is not having that. To contend. Not contend is the wrong word, because I absolutely love it. But, you know, those few moments before you're doing it yet again and it's going out live, and you've got to slightly watch your P's and Q's, but be yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I've always been myself, really. Forget about watching the P's and Q's. That's why I've got yellow carded so often.
Good stuff, man. Never change.
Do you know what's the time that you feel like you've just been put, like you're winging it? Do you know, like, say you mentioned the very first time you had to commentate where you kind of didn't really know anybody. What sort of situations have you been put in where you've just had to completely wing it?
The only time I can think about that really comes to mind was when we'd done Saturday afternoon Super Pole at Brands World Superbikes. And on the Sunday morning, we were voicing a kind of slightly condensed version of it. So this is typical of the way they used to work in France. So you had to voice it again, because it was a slightly different version. And someone somewhere in Brands had pulled the plug out. So all the screens went down just as we were going on air. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. And Whittam, perfectly justifiably, stood up, threw his cans on the desk and marched out and just left me to it. So I commentated. I did the whole of that session. I did on sound. I was recognizing, attempting to recognize different motorcycles and trying to remember what had been happening the previous day on during that Super Pole thing. And just tried to commentate with flannel my way through it, really.
God,
so I did that with nothing on the screen at all. And actually, that was one particular memory. Yes.
Could you? I mean, at that particular point, were you not tempted to just slip in some lies? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, there seems to be a G50 entered this Super Pole. You know what I mean? Beautiful single cylinder. You know, there seems to be an oil spill on turn 2 here.
If I'd had any wit, I'd have done that. I was actually trying to do it properly, but I should have really have done a Dominic Herbertson and just flannelled my way through all sorts of rubbish.
Oh, I tell you what, he's going to struggle with this one. The front wheel seems to have fallen out. He's going to have
that's Steve Colley, wrong sport.
There we are. But, oh my God,
yeah. I think everyone's got sort of personal preferences in terms of commentators and stuff, but I know fine well from personal experience and from people I know, like the combination of you and Wit in the commentary box is a favourite for the majority of BSB fans. So it just doesn't seem right. Like if it is the case of like time, like say change in direction, I think your services that you've for all this time should definitely be at least recognised as a minimum, and it just doesn't seem. I don't know. It just seems a bit odd, the whole thing.
To be fair though, you haven't announced anything. This is a full exclusive of Chasing the Race in this. So
I haven't. I mean, I've had it. Alan at OMG knows, because he happened to have got in touch with me just to say by text to say it's great to hear you back on the motocross again, and I'd heard something from Robin Appleyard, so I'd let Robin Appleyard know.
Yeah,
and he sent back a lovely text saying, "We'll miss your lovely casual approach," which I thought was great, because you would not believe.
You're calling me lazy.
You would not believe how much hard work goes into that, creating that lovely casual approach.
I can tell you what,
I didn't know whether to. I had no idea how to go about it. I still haven't. Whether to kind of announce it publicly or to just quietly
Do you know,
exit by the side door.
On a personal note, don't you dare go off quietly. Don't you dare.
I already have done.
No, you bollocks. You're on this show now. We'll do you a favour. Me and him will chuck your phone in the Mersey when it gets announced. So it's going to go off the bloody hook, that thing, your phone. Everyone's going to be pinging you, ringing you, texting you.
There's a...
chuck it.
Do you know that there's a Twitter account, Burnicle Bingo? Do you know about that?
I do know a bit about it. They're going to have to find someone else to choose, aren't they? Because but I don't really... I know something about it, but I don't really know what it actually is and who does it. I'm
the gist of it, I think, is basically, do you know the like sort of catchphrase, the words? So, like, for example, with me, you would like say the curly haired Geordie boy.
Yes.
So they would have like a curly haired Geordie boy on the scorecard for that day, but like have like a scorecard of all the sort of likely things that you're going to say. And then when you say them, it's like the first one to get a house. I think that's the idea. Did you not know that?
No, that's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was specific. You've explained specifically how it works, and I didn't know that's how it was.
I tell you what, though, it's going to be a big struggle for the North East, isn't it? Because you proudly represent the North East.
You always give me a good shout, don't you? You've always have given me a real good shout.
Anyone from the North East, Graham Gowan and Barry Teasdale, you know what I mean? Even you've kindly mentioned me a couple of times. So it's so important for us. I'm not just trying to get the violin out for the North East Third World lads here, but it's like, we're forgetting. You know what I mean? Well, we've forgotten about.
You've got Christian Eden now married and living up your end, haven't you? In Ponteland or somewhere. He's like right up on the banks of the Tyne.
Well, that's it. And hopefully, at the moment, I think he's searching for a ride at the moment. So
is he?
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Oh, surely not.
Yeah,
he should be walking.
Well, I don't know that for a fact, but it's amazing what we've got a little saying on here. It's called the rumour mill. You know what I mean? So sometimes when you hear something in the paddock, it could be different. So no doubt Christian's listening to this going, that's not the case at all, you idiot.
Are you familiar with like sort of who's going where for next year and the sort of changes?
Only what it gets sent to me on by email or press release or something like that, or I just hear from the ether really, and not very much. Mainly, possibly a bit mainly from a guy called Roger Harvey, who was a former national motocross champion, who still works as a consultant on the motocross Grand Prix scene for Honda Japan.
Right.
And it's strange enough, Roger always seems to know. And also he worked in the road racing world for quite a long time with that Castrol Honda team.
Oh, yes.
With Joy Dunlop, with Carl Muggeridge, and I don't know about whether Toes was under his auspices. He was more concerned with the UK activities when Muggers was riding in the UK alongside, what was the lovely New Zealand fellow who got killed? I'm sorry, there was a New Zealand lad who he particularly fondly remembers, but he was very much involved in the road racing side. That's why he's finding this quite funny, what's happening now. It's funny, Jack, we've gone all the way back to scrambles, haven't we, the two of us? Having been in the road racing world, we're teetering back towards scrambles where we first met as kids.
Do you keep in touch with Whit?
He's rung me a couple of times, and he wasn't thrilled at the news of my departure. No, he did text me saying, actually, I feel quite rubbish about this. You know?
You both I've heard you speak very highly of like the times that you've had travelling around with Whittam and vice versa. When I've spoke to Whittam about it, in fact, I think the very first time we had you on here, I think we're at Wits like that day or earlier that day, and he was saying, he's loved the time spending with you going around Europe.
We've had great excursions together. I really enjoyed that. So I feel blessed to have had that time. Yeah, that's been great.
With that being said, you got any dirt on him?
No, only the time he was so bladdered on the Sunday night at Magny Court. I think it was the night that it might have been the night that Tom Sykes had missed the championship by half a point to Max Biaggi. 2012
that was really controversial because Loris Baz was Tom Sykes' teammate, and I think he didn't
the team order.
He didn't play a ball. Can you remember that?
Yeah, that was it.
Team orders, they're things, aren't they?
We're going to talk about that later on.
Is that Formula One?
So
I'm going to ask the question.
I think that was the night that the following morning, it was the first time that Roger Roger Burnett had suggested to us that he said, why don't you fly down to Lyon and drive back up to Magny-Cours? It's much simpler than that atrocious going around Paris and back that way. So we did that. And that's right. Unfortunately, we didn't take a map, so we set off from Lyon northwards and got 3/4 of the way towards Paris before we realised Magny-Cours was over here somewhere. We should have turned left. So we had a wonderful drive across B roads, and it was really peaceful and hilltop villages and things. It was absolutely beautiful. But he got really in quite a bad state on the Saturday, and thoroughly enjoyed himself on the Sunday night. But all he was fit to do was vomit out the side of the hire car after half a mile and then fall asleep. And I wasn't down as a driver on the hire car, and I was shitting myself because I had to drive all the way to Lyon Airport with a slumbering Whittam, and the risk of getting hoyed over for having nothing, no reason to be driving in France. What the hell was I doing in this car? And unlike you guys who can kind of fly by night and kind of get away with stuff, I'm actually quite a well-behaved character, and I was I didn't like doing that. I'd rather, after that, I made sure I was on whatever I was down as an official driver, whatever we were doing.
I thought you were about to say get more drunk than him, so
then we'd have been really stranded.
I could just see you looking at him at the bar going, oh shit, he's on the shots.
Yeah, they don't
get the whiskey.
Do you know, it's like a bit of a generation thing, isn't it? But I guess, like, do you know, the generation below us, like if we ever have kids and we're telling them about things, like say if they went through and read Whittam's book, I just don't think there's people like that anymore. I think it's like it's very much a like the stuff that sort of you could get away with back then is just you kind of get like with the new world that we live in terms of like CCTV cameras everywhere, and like everyone's got iPhones, and there's lots. He's just such a character.
Traveling abroad that was another thing. There was a lot of parallels in the way we kind of come through the sport, even though it was two different lines of the sport. Because I used to travel abroad with to motocross Grand Prix with the guys a lot, and they used to be up to all sorts of tricks to get go out on a 48-hour pass on Townsend Torreston and come back like 8 weeks later with a slightly modified ticket that just kind of. Or they'd hide you in the back of the van and they'd go over as a small car with one person in. It was the whole thing, and then you'd all unload when you got on the ferry. There was all sorts of quaint misbehaviour that went on. Sorry, that came out wrong. You'd get out of the van once you got the shout that you were all clear, you were properly on the ferry, you were parked up, you could get out now. Loads of people would come out in the back of the van, and you think it couldn't happen, could it? It wouldn't. It would be difficult. It would be more difficult. You
can't brag about it these days. You've got to be quietly confident to get away with stuff like that, can you? Never get someone to do this.
I'll never forget the Scotsman, Willie Simpson. I convulsed when I heard him hand his ticket over to the guy on the East Docks at Dover. And all I heard Willie say was, okay, it's a Strada, eh? He got a ticket for a small car. This is a Strada, eh? But bloody huge fucking van was a Strada. Of course it was a Fiat Strada. And he was the only person in it.
Good lad. Good lad.
Are you a big fan of the road race and like watching it? TT, Northwest, that sort of thing?
I was saying this last time.
I like the road stuff. I do like the road stuff. It frightens me to death, but I do like to watch it.
Are you looking forward to it all returning this year, like back to the TT?
Well, we were talking before we were talking in our house, weren't we, about whether will it actually? Right now, we're at this moment in time. Then things are. You've got to say things are a bit uncertain right now. So. Will it actually happen? We hope it will, but there's always going to be a possibility that it won't. But we hope it does.
When we just talk,
you take it for granted, don't you? Like before all this rubbish kicked off and that, it was just like TT's on next year. that's on next year. You just take it out. You just took that for granted at the time, and now it's like everyone turns the word round, don't they? I hope that's on. I hope this is happening.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
And that's right. And actually, that's me echoing too much of what's around, because I just say, yeah, it will be on. Yes, we will be doing everything that we want to do. Yeah.
That's the thing. It's
another thing that's just occurred to me that I discovered through missing those last 3 rounds of BSB with me cough was that one of the amazing things that happens when you wish you were somewhere and you can't be is that once you're kind of anticipating it, and then you get to the actual event, the weekend of the event, and you can't be there anyway, and it's all happening. You're not there, but it doesn't matter because it's all happening and it's all there, and it actually becomes quite good entertainment to watch because you're not having to be a part of it. You don't have to. You're not living by the seat of your pants, being a part of it. You're relaxing on the sofa, watching it, and listening and things, and you think, actually, I quite like this.
I should have got this 4 years ago.
So I could enjoy it.
Do you know when you start watching it by yourself in the living room? Do you find yourself start commentating?
There's always going to be that. There's always, because you see more when you're not commentating.
I know.
You see more and you think, Christ, how can they be missing what's just going on there in the background? Like what's just happened and but that always happens.
So in terms of the big stories for coming into 2022, in terms of the people moving around, we've got... the 1 and 2 in the championship are staying. So Taz and O'Halloran are staying in the same team. Taz
1 and 3 in the championship.
Sorry, 1 and 3, yeah.
And 1 and 2 are staying. Tommy Bridewell's staying put.
Tommy Bridewell's staying put, yeah. We've also... in terms of movers, Ryan Vickers has moved to FHO.
To join Hickman. I thought that Josh Brooks was going there, but
that's what we heard on the room.
That hasn't. PBM haven't actually officially announced. There's rumours that both Haslam and Tom Sykes are coming back from World Superbikes.
Yes, I know that Tom Sykes had sorted that out with Paul Bird before I was ever not there.
Oh, really?
That was done ages ago.
That hasn't actually been announced yet. But...
Oh, it hasn't. I beg your pardon.
That never happened. Wink, wink.
Yeah. So that's sort of rumoured to be happening, and then possibly say Josh Brooks staying there. But yeah, obviously it'll be big talking points. But if with Haslam and Sykesy coming back from 2 sort of veterans of the sport coming back, and sort of will Taz be able to fend them off, and big talking points.
How can I put this politely? Because he's such a lovely lad, or he can be. But will at least Sykesy won't be called the grinner all the time by Fred, bless him. That's hopefully it's got blown out of the water. But will he still have what it takes to take on the idiosyncrasies of short circuits in the UK?
Big question.
I think that's a big question.
Now, when Scott Redding came to the championship, what was your opinion then? If you know what I mean.
But Scott Redding was at the other end of a career. Mm-hmm. He was a younger man. He hadn't won a world championship. He was out to prove something.
Right.
Tommy as well. I feel Tom's been. I better be careful what I say here, but he's 10 years further down the line, and he's got a world championship in his pocket.
It'll surely be impressive if he does come back, and if he is able to be battling for the championship. It'll be impressive.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
because the tracks are that bit different, aren't they? With the exception of Silverstone and Donington.
Yeah,
really.
It's a big change where Haslam's been sort of back and forward a few times and always been
and also Haslam is. He's such a hard rider. He's always on it, isn't he? You feel that wherever he goes and whatever he's attempting, he's going to give something. He's going to give 100%, and he's going to ride hard and also, be competitive.
Not in terms of the riders changing teams, but in terms of the teams changing manufacturers. The OMG lads, Rich Energy OMG, they've went from BMWs to Yamahas.
We've just had Steve Rogers on, and it's just the fact of like their like he was saying, wasn't he, the confidence they have in that bike.
The lads have been out testing in Cartagena, and Bradley Ray smashed the lap record out there. So I think that them two could easily be very competitive as well.
I hope so, because I feel that the last 12 months, 2 years has slightly passed Brad and Kyle Ryde by somehow, and they're more than that.
At times, both lads have shown. I mean, like when Brad first stepped up to superbikes, and can you remember when he won the race very early on?
And we thought that was what he needed to kick on from, and it didn't happen.
And it wasn't just a one-off either. He went to Brands the round after, and he was battling with shaky. When he was on the Suzuki, he was battling with shaky on the Ducati at the time.
But he had that injury last year, that wrist problem, and that really hampered him.
And same with Kyle's had sort of...
He did the same on the build base bike as well, didn't he?
I think he won...
Yeah, he did.
And he did the double at Silverstone that time, but just didn't seem to consolidate. We're actually supposed to have Kyle on the podcast a few weeks ago. In fact, we both drove down to Derby separately, and he was playing snooker, so we'd arranged to get him on at 6:00, and it got to 6:00, and he messaged us to say he couldn't make it. So we literally, it was like a...
He owes us, I tell you what, I owe him an invoice for diesel.
I was going to say, it was like the Villa Burnley game today, calling it off 2 hours before bloody kickoff with 2,000 Burnley fans pouring down the M6. Yeah.
Wow. Was that COVID related?
Yeah. For the Aston Villa.
This wasn't COVID related, so he's getting an invoice.
Yeah. I was going to say, lay into him when you get him in this cabin.
There's been
lock
loads,
that door.
There's been loads of matches off at the moment, football matches with the old COVID things.
There's only a single Premier League game going on right now between Arsenal and Leeds. Leeds at home.
Are you big into football?
I do enjoy my football. I do carp on about some of the bloody decisions sometimes, and also the lily-livered footballers who just fall over and lie down as if they've been shot. It really gets on my nerves, that aspect of it, really.
There's a definite term for them people: shite bags.
Are they? Okay, I'll remember that.
It's a great word used by the Scottish.
When you see someone like Traore at Wolverhampton or that goal on Wednesday night that Trent Alexander-Arnold scored, I just love seeing a football hit so hard and true that it's like a missile that no one could get near. That goal last year, it wasn't credited to him even when Traore just ran at the Leeds defence and hit one so hard it almost bust the crossbar and hit the Leeds goalie on the back of the head and then went in. It was a fabulous strike.
We'll have to find that.
And he wasn't credited. He wasn't credited with a goal because it was an own goal by the goalkeeper. But
for God's sake!
I'm out of the loop of football, but I used to be like proper bang into it. And
you used to be a you were damn near a professional footballer, weren't you? Let's be honest about this. You actually were. And you won that keepy-uppy competition at Snetterton a couple of years back. Good memory. And I scored 0 and you scored about 3,000. I mean, and everyone was, even James Ellison was saying, bloody hell, this isn't fair. We know how good he is. and I thought everybody else was terrific, but bloody hell, they couldn't get you off.
I know every time I get reminded of that fact, I go, Chrissy, why didn't you become a professional footballer and then fund your racing? You know what I mean? I can barely dribble out my own face, never mind football. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, Jesus. I tell you what, sorry, I must get this in. Speaking of injustice and stuff like that, I'm getting there before you. Now that you're watching sport, let's talk about the F1. Did you watch that race for Hamilton? Listen, here we go. Get in. Hold me back, Chris.
Okay, where do I start?
Go for it, mate. Go for it. Where do you start?
I'm not a Lewis Hamilton fan.
Right.
Okay. I think he's had the fastest car for a long time, and whenever he feels like he's getting beat, he whinges about the fact that I've not got enough power. And you think, hell's teeth, son. You've had the fastest car on earth for how many years? You've been able to win world championship after world championship after world championship. You got beaten once by your teammate, who was a half-decent teammate, but most of your teammates have been shite, so they've not been good enough, like Bottas certainly isn't. And then on the first lap of the deciding Grand Prix of the season, when you've actually been run close for the first time by Verstappen and Red Bull, he overtakes you, gets back into the lead, and you just take off and just miss I just couldn't believe it. You just say, oh, that corner doesn't exist. I'll just go over there then. And just fuck off. And you think, how can that be right?
Wait, what was it? It was a clean move, wasn't it?
As regards the grand finale, which I don't actually know I don't know what happened. That lead-in, when they were following the pace car, I don't understand how you're suddenly alongside Hamilton. But it was great. We had a worthy Formula One winner. I was really chuffed. I thought the whinge bag in the Mercedes was going to win again, and he didn't. So I was well chuffed.
God, but it's just talk. Like, I tell you what, though, there's people that don't even follow motorsport and nothing into it. It was one of them timeless motorsport moments that everyone in the world was talking about. You know, the next day it was like, was that fair? Was that not? You know what I mean? I am a huge fan of the underdog. You know, I think it's the Britiness. You know what I mean? And it's a fact.
Well,
like,
for me, the Verstappen and Red Bull were always the underdogs, and I was just thinking, dear me, they've thrown it away here.
I've got to say, so I'm not really into Formula One, but I did watch that thing. I'm not really I'm
not really into. I find it tedious for a long while.
Exactly, and I'm not a big fan of Lewis Hamilton either. But I've got to say, I thought after what happened, I thought he was unbelievably gracious in defeat straight after the race on his interview.
Until they refused to show up as the celebration party and all that stuff.
I didn't know that, but I just meant on do you know, in the interview straight afterwards, he was very he just congratulated Red Bull, and I think in that circumstance emotion could have got the better of him. I thought he was a true professional from that, but I do agree with you. I'm not a big fan, and I think he's a fantastic driver, but he's definitely had a big advantage in terms of cars.
Such a superior car, for crying out loud, really.
We said this on the
anything. It's what Witt has always told me. You know, if you're on a faster motorcycle, it's an enormous advantage.
Yeah,
an enormous advantage, and for him being in a faster car, huge advantage for many years.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Because who was the lad they put in? One lad, because when Hamilton was off with COVID or something like that, he was off anyway for one round, and so they put one other driver in his car, and he put it on pole.
Oh, that was the British lad. The Williams driver.
That says a lot, doesn't it? Lando Norris.
That's what it was. It was someone.
I don't think he'd ever got a point before, and he was the standing driver for Hamilton, and he put it on pole. It's the young British lad.
Everyone went nuts for it because it was just like, and there's the best car. Yeah. It was, though, you know what I mean?
It was living proof.
It's like when you go go-karting with your mate, there's always someone who gets the best car, and then there's always better than the other.
If BSB had one team where there was two bikes that were clearly better than all the other bikes, and they always were first and second, it would be extremely the viewing figures would go straight off. One of the best things about
all the different manufacturers involved.
Absolutely. One of the best things about superbikes is how unpredictable it is. And if you don't think it's unpredictable, try putting some bets on it, because I'm telling you, if you want to try and bet on BSB, it's difficult.
I think the thing that truly makes me bang my head against the wall with Formula One is the fact that you've got to be on pole, because if you're on pole, you win the race. No one can overtake you, and except if you have a pit stop. You're thinking, really? How sodding boring is that?
50-odd laps of it as well.
Yeah. But you're pleased you commentate on 2 wheels, not 4.
I'm delighted I commentated on 2 wheels and not 4. Yeah.
I tell you what, my respect went through the roof. Only for I don't follow F1 like you lads do, and same as you lads, don't follow it. But I was lucky. I went to Spa circuit this year.
Oh, did you?
And
what was that, to ride in that classic endurance series or something?
Got on the podium.
Wow.
On the podium. I did. First time on an RC30. Honestly, I don't know.
Wow.
What a giggle that was. So
Terry Reimer still goes on about Spa, and he says it's just the mint place to go. I think it might come back onto the World Endurance calendar, I hope so.
That's what they're working on.
That was the plan. But there was the lady suddenly... The lady died, didn't she, earlier this year? The lady who was at the helm at Spa. So I hope that hasn't thrown things. Yeah,
but they're rebuilding the whole track.
Are they?
They are opening up safety barriers. They're moving everything back. They are really putting serious money into it. Serious money into it. Right. But what's Eau Rouge? The bottom.
Yeah.
Now that on this RC30, you get to the bottom over the rumble, you hook a gear out and you drive up. Yeah, yes, it's on a classic superbike, but on an F1 car, they don't lift.
No.
And I'm going through that, I'm on this RC30, I'm going to bend this in half if I hit the bottom here. And I literally came in, hooked the gear, and the thing's, I'm crossing up going into it, the bike bottoms out, sparks are flying, then I'm over the top, big wheelie, and I'm like that going. And an F1 car is just gloomed.
Well, it's
Yeah, but not as exciting and not as terminally exciting as doing it on an RC30.
I could not agree more. But the pace those cars.
And what about? I saw some footage early. Must have been early this year, was it, or last year? Some footage of Fangio and Moss there in their Mercedes-Benz factory F1 cars in 1955 going around Spa, and just to watch them coming through La Source hairpin and just kind of correcting her and sliding her. It was
Proper
lovely
driving.
to watch. Proper driving, as you put it.
Have you ever been to Spa? Like been to Spa? Like
No.
is it? What's is that? Have you? Where have you wanted to go and you never went to, and where you still can go? You got your bucket list, Jack. We've got to work through this.
Well, actually, Spa might be on that bucket list because I've had the pleasure of the Nürburgring, Monza, Imola, which were major ones, and Phillip Island. I'd probably be looking at Spa as being one of the major traditional tracks. And one that doesn't exist anymore, really, which used to wax lyrical about the original Assen. Mm-hmm. I'd love to have seen the Assen long track that those guys were winning Grand Prix at in the early 50s. That must have been something.
Well, I'll tell you what,
that's on two wheels.
There you are. Well, me and Chrissy will take you. So, plan is I'm going to win the Euros, right? That's the plan. And we're going to do that World Endurance event. If not, I'll take you to the Classic one next year. Jump in the van. But it's Euro tunnel straight over.
Who did you? Yeah, because it's not very far. Is it getting across to Belgium and just spreading out the Netherlands, Belgium, northern France, and that it's easy to
just drive.
Yeah,
just straight.
Which is what we used to drive back straight from after motocross Grand Prix, like into the night, and just get back to Calais.
Do you know if you can have the perfect fireplace in the world, and you can have one sort of tarmac bike of any rider's bike from any era, and you can have one motocross bike parked up as sort of ornaments. Which two? So one from the motocross world, one from the road racing world. Which two bikes would you pick?
An Orihagas R7 would be one, and
CCM.
Actually, that's a thought. That CCM's not a bad thought. I was thinking a bit four banger or
big heavy four banger twin shock.
That's
Drum
really.
brake.
I think. No, I think I'd probably predate that with a Gold Star BSA.
Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
Did you see the BSAs at the NEC?
Oh, the new ones. I had brought out. They're trying to go up again. But do you know what BSA stands for?
Birmingham Small Arms.
Damn it! I'm trying to impress this.
Yeah, they were ammunitions makers, gun makers.
If you look at the logo, the detail in the actual logo was unreal, and I think they were one of the first bikes that they banned from having front license plates, because back in the day they had the license plate forward, but everyone was crashing into each other. Well, that thing was acting like a bloody guillotine.
Yes.
So when
that's why they took the front number plates off motorbikes.
That's why bikes don't have them.
Really?
There you go.
Because they could cause a bit too much damage.
Everyone getting pissed and riding the single bangers up the road.
That's right. But I'm thinking of the Gold Star as the motocrosser that was the bit of a standard thing in the 1960s.
Good lad. There we go. I'll tell you what.
Reminds me, P Farm, Stanley, and all those places. So some of them still exist. They're up in the northeast.
Yeah. So P Farm's on the back of.
I've been around there.
There's they do walk across there, and it's you get the odd practice day, but it's not very. I don't think it's that commonly.
It's not looked after, but it's mint.
What about Toft Hill or
no?
I've heard of.
We've been to Toft Hill, but
Woolly Wolversham, was it Woolsingham up on the moors there?
We had Woolly Grange, the track the Woolly Grange up
That's
there.
At Barnard Castle.
No,
there was one that used to have 125 and sidecar championships up there up Weardale way, high up Weardale. Which one was that? Can't remember which one was that one, but there were quite a few dotted around in in the Gateshead Motor Club, Ferry Hill, all sorts of different small clubs, that just used to produce programs by printing them off.
But see, that's the problem with motorsport. Everything's just struggling, noise complaints and everything. Oh, it's just
there is. Well, I must admit the 4-strokes have contributed a lot to that in the off-road world.
Yeah,
the 4-stroke thing.
But I'll tell you, one of my last questions before we let you get back to Strictly and you can go find the results.
This has been a really boring podcast. I'm sorry.
Has it bollocks? Not a bleeding no, but I've got to ask a question. What was he like to work with, commentating?
He only did it the once, and he was exceptionally good, really good, and the producer thought so too. And the reason we got him in was because we had those qualification races for the stockers. But the field kind of thinned out after that, and they didn't need to they stopped running the qualifiers.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Chrissy was then involved. So we couldn't have that where he was kind of processed through proceedings, so he could join us in the comms booth, which was very disappointing. We're looking forward to doing it again. I'll tell you someone else who was very good last year was Brandon Pasch. He joined us at I think at Silverstone, and he was really excellent. You never know until you get someone on air, how they're going to be, really. Sometimes people who in normal life give off quite a lot actually kind of retreat a bit when they get onto a microphone. Yeah.
Brandon won the Daytona 200. Daytona 200 last year.
Yes, I know, by a whisker.
Yeah,
but got a lot of cash and a nice Rolex.
Yeah,
a lot of cash.
Got 25 grand.
And is he coming back in?
I think he's looking to ride with Buckmaster in the Triumph in the World Championship.
In the World Championship rather than because I think Simon wanted to get back onto the world stage, didn't he?
I believe so. I don't think anything's been officially announced, but I think Matt Roberts and Shaky look after Brandon, I think.
Oh, do they?
I believe so.
In amongst their building up expanding stable.
They've got some good lads signed up now and then.
Isn't it funny how the beginning of every year or the anticipation of every year always heightens a bit over what's gone before? You know what I mean? It just you think, wow, it's going to be quite a season, isn't it?
If you're not involved with BSB directly, will you still follow it on TV and or would you?
Well, the truth is, I've never had Eurosport, so I've never really I've been saved from watching or listening to myself. So I'll think.
I don't
know really. Oh, but my son-in-law has it. I mean, I could pop round there and have a look, but I can't imagine feeling that involved if you've really played a part in a sport. It's difficult to go back to it as a. What would I be doing there? Do you know what I mean? Just be hanging out and being a nuisance to people. Really, I think.
But that latter part's a load of rubbish, but we totally agree with it. It's like the feeling of you want to be a part of it.
You want to be a part of it. And I think I might feel that way about, perhaps I could watch it on the telly now and then, but I don't think I'd feel the need to do so constantly because one of the things I would be able to do was have a bit more family time across those summer weekends where I was always kind of on the road and somewhere else.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Good.
Can I just ask about you? No, is it a brass? What's
that's
It's a thing Gabe made. She originally it was originally a more kind of corrugated copper thing that she'd made for me that was really nice, but it snapped in half, and she tried to. What she tried to do was put the two parts together by riveting them on this. Can you see the rivet holes?
Yeah.
She riveted it on the band, and that worked for a short while, and then they popped off the rivets. And I just quite like the look of it just with the rivets, really, so I just left it there. Cool. And that strange-looking thing is... I've always incidentally worn this copper on there as well and a bit of a ring on that finger. And I've worn copper ever since a motocross riding pal donkeys years ago. He had one on, and I said, "What's that for?" And he said, "Oh, well, my elbows have been giving me jip, and mine were just starting to give me a bit of jip then, and I've never been without it since." And dear old Roger Marshall gave me a selection of he said, "Here, we thought we'd get you these. We thought you're the sort of bloke that would like to wear them, and this is one of Roger's presents.
So it's the copper for health reasons. Is it?
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
Oh no, my pot wears stuff like that, and I'm after one.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's supposed to help your joints.
Yeah.
Keep your joints from getting too bad.
I'll let like you get proper green wrists, for the copper.
Yeah, I know. But on very hot days, I turn green round here underneath
Really?
where the copper comes off. Yeah,
loads when I grew up in the woods, kind of I feel like a feral child. You know what I mean? I was like baby Tarzan, Chrissy, and growing up and looking at all these wild men wearing copper. But it's like the green running down your arm, like my granddad and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'm after one because I'm missing a tendon in that arm.
The strange thing is, I've never. I've just never taken the stuff off, so
No.
I don't know whether it makes any difference. I mean, I did have a problem once I think it was at Frankfurt, when a stern German gentleman who was on duty at security, and he said he asked me to take it off, and I think that was the one I had on before that. Like I couldn't, it never comes off. It didn't come off, and I said it won't come off. And he just looked at me and said, "I don't believe you." And I said, "Well, it doesn't, I'm afraid." So he let me through, but his piercing gaze followed me all the way to the aeroplane.
with an Alsatian sniffing your ass like that, going, "He's got a
It was
bomb."
just the way he said, "I don't believe you."
Brilliant.
He spoke very good English, though. I have to give him that. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to say that to him in German.
I keep saying this, one of my last questions, but what would be your dream commentate, or have you already done it, your dream event to commentate on? Or have you already done it?
Heavens. I don't know. I think I've done them all. I've done all aspects of two wheels and enjoyed doing a lot, really.
That says everything, that though, doesn't it? As far as a career that you have and you've got,
I've pretty much got to a lot of the places and done a lot of the commentaries, and I'd like to be able to remember some of them a bit better. It's amazing how it all grows into a big haze, and there are just highlights in there that you recall. Like I'll never forget going on the Nürburgring in the Skoda Fabia hire car with Whittam, because he hadn't got his license back from DVL, what's his name? He'd had to send his license away through a misdemeanor, and they hadn't returned it, so he couldn't do the driving that weekend. And it just happened to be the weekend we did the lap of the Nordschleifer at Nürburgring.
Class.
That was really memorable. That was really memorable. Driving it, realizing, because they had the names of the track of the corners, and I knew quite a lot of them, because I used to be mad about motor cars and motorists when I was a kid. And I just suddenly realised, I just remember shouting at Whittam, "It's the carousel!" And this Porsche 911 was coming up like shit behind us. And I just pulled across in front of him. And do you know the carousel? The carousel was originally a ditch on the inside of the corner that was concreted over. So you can wallop through it because it's got this enormous camber on. Bang! I just hit it. Wah, and went round on rails. Came up the other end, and like the 911 was 200 metres behind. I was thinking, yes, okay, you can pass me now.
Do you know all the BSB races you've commentated on? What's been your favourite race to commentate on?
It would probably be. I know it's boring, really, but it would probably be Tommy Hill versus John Hopkins at Brands in 2011. So that's 10 years ago. 10 years ago.
Doesn't feel like 10 years, that does it?
No, I think it was the first. It was when Tommy pulled that pass going through Dingle Dell. I think that was the first time I'd seen someone do that. I'd seen someone pass at that point, and that absolutely took me head on. That was just fantastic. I was, and he told me afterwards that his feeling was that if he wasn't ahead at that point when he went through to Stirling's, he would lose the race. He had to be in front at that point, so that was just throwing everything at it to get past him there into the Sheen curve.
Do you know, sometimes in like practice and qualifying sessions, you'll come across like somebody that's considerably slower, and sometimes you like sort of have a look up the inside, and unless they're like a hell of a lot slower. That's
Yes.
not really a passing place.
Yes.
But like sometimes as you pull out for the pass, you kind of think about that move, because that's the only time you've ever really seen somebody pass clean there. And
Yes.
if you look at because you don't really pass there, is because he went to the inside, his foot pretty much bottoms out on the floor on the right hand side. It's a tremendous pass, and you can hear in your own wit's voice is like it's an unbelievable way. I mean, have you had a chance to either read or listen to John Hopkins' autobiography yet?
No, because Matt Roberts has been working on it, and we were talking about it at the time he was working on the book. But I haven't seen the book. I've never actually seen Witt's book. I've read Shakey's book and Stalkers and the Old Trout, Neil Mackenzie's, but I haven't. No, I never got Witt's. I haven't got Witt's book.
I've got Witt's book. If you want to lend it, I'll send it down.
I'm going to have plenty of time to read books, perhaps.
Hopkins' book's unbelievable, by the way. You need to.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can listen to books, you know.
Yeah,
Did you know
I
that?
prefer to read them.
Oh, fair enough.
I prefer to read them.
Good man.
But Hopkins could be an interesting read, couldn't he?
Oh, it's incredible.
Because he was, things were already. He came into World Superbikes with us at times, when things were slightly chaotic for him.
Very. And go on. Were you
No. If you got another question,
it's just sort of quick fire questions, really. But do you know, in your time of just BSB, which superbike riders brought you the most amount of joy commentating on?
Oh. Where are you hiding these questions?
I think it would have to be Hager again, even though I didn't necessarily hugely like the man at times, the way he behaved at times. He
could ride a bike.
It was. I think if you look at Hockenheim 2000, that race. That's the one that springs to mind. If you can find, I don't think it's got my voice on it, so you don't have to at least listen to me. But when there were 8 riders neck and neck, and 7 of them were out of the top 8 of the World Championship, and Norrie won that one by bamboozling Edwards in the penultimate turn. It was just, but the guy who'd got to the front. Just got to the front on the Kawasaki. It was the guy I used to love, Akira Watanabe. He was it Akira Yanagawa? Akira Yanagawa, Watanabe is the only ever Japanese world motocross champion. Akira,
really?
Back in 1978. Akira Yanagawa and just got the factory Kawasaki to the front, and it exploded massively flat out down the straight, and all the rest of them were weaving around, getting round and carrying on the race. It was just an epic race. That I can't remember if it was the first one or the second one, but Norrie was. It doesn't matter that he never won the World Championship. He was so bloody special. He was liable to do anything,
I remember it's something that gets replayed all over. Like social media just like regurgitates great moments and like in this sport, I
ought to look at that more often. Yeah,
and it's a case of like I remember it was Hager's qualifying in Donington Park on the Fireblade, and you were commentating on Witt, and he qualified. I'll never. Every time before I go into a wet race, I watch that. Because it just shows what you can do in the wet. And it was phenomenal riding. And it was just, he qualified second.
I think you're thinking about Kianari, aren't you?
Wrong rider.
Yeah, I think you're thinking about
Kianari. Anyway, you commentated on it. It was fantastic.
That's
different
rider.
awesome.
That is awesome, though.
Oh, you commentated on that, and he did an outstanding job on that one as well, to be fair. I'm mixing up my riders here.
Yeah, he's completely sideways everywhere.
Everywhere. And he qualified second. You're thinking, what did the guy in Paul have to do with if we saw that footage? It was just phenomenal.
Yeah. Actually, I remember that a friend of my daughter's works with Kat Green. Do you remember Catherine Green?
Yeah.
The only lady to win a British superbike race, to actually win. She won a 125 race at Cadwell Park, and that was in the damp. And she'd been told by Ryan Saxelby, the guy who used to do her motors, before she went out, running against lads half her age, he'd said to her, you can really go for it for about the first 3 laps. Absolutely nail it. It's a bit damp and it looks a bit treacherous, but you'll be all right. Just really go for it for the first 2 or 3 laps, which she did. And she just got away from the kids who were a bit more, and And he works for her. He works for their company, the company that's run by her and her husband.
Class.
Isn't that amazing thing? Because she was a hell of a ride. I mean, she was already like knocking on 40 when she did that. She was cracking.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and she won that. She won it well.
Oh, brilliant.
I was going to say, we've got a strength game, but I don't know.
I've definitely got one. I've definitely got another
strength game.
Oh no!
You've got another question.
Oh no! My other question is, it's a bit like, it's obviously devastating that I'm absolutely gutted the fact that, you know, potentially not going to be involved in commentating anymore.
Right,
so it's a bit like, if everything was right for you, would you come back if the opportunities were there? Because there'd be a lot of people going, wanting to come back. If the opportunities were right for you.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Because it's been a major part of my life for a long time.
Because a lot of people be asking, does he want to come? Like, you know, you've got such a passion about you.
But as I say, there's a lot of confusion at Eurosport right now. Like right now, I'm talking yesterday. They fired Mark Cole, who's one of their principal motorsports commentators, again for 30 years.
Jesus.
And they fired a boyhood hero of mine, Fru Macmillan, who used to win doubles tennis championships at Wimbledon and stuff like that. Great double-handed South African who lives in Bristol. Lovely, lovely man, and they got rid of him as well. There's strange things happening there.
There is strange, but it is good. Like, you know, if someone is listening to this, you know, this does get a fair bit out in the motorsport industry, and you know, and if things are right, you would step back into the role of commentating on the road side.
Yeah.
Which is I'm glad to hear that, you know. I'm over the moon to hear that, you know what I mean? But it's, you know, if there's anyone out there who can, you know, sort the bloody job out, that'll be outstanding.
We'll run something called a Patreon page, and I'd let people know who's coming on the podcast as guests. So I've got a video from Mel, he's from Canada. It is Canada, isn't it? Canadian.
He's not a native.
And anyway, I've got no idea what he's going to ask you, but he's going to ask you a question.
We'll have to edit this bit.
All right.
Hopefully, if the internet works anyway.
Hi Jack, this is Mel from the very wet west coast of Canada. Been rewatching some British Superbike from over the years, and what makes it so enjoyable beyond just the incredible racing is you and Whittam and your chemistry, and you just complement each other so well. It just really sets the standard for racing commentary in my book. I come from a bit of a motorcycle journalism background, print magazines mainly over the years.
Yeah.
But as times have changed, that's changed, and just wondering what would be your best bit of advice for somebody looking to get into what you do, to one day be even a tenth as good as you are. Anyway, thanks for the great work over the years, and look forward to hearing what you might have to say. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
How cool is that?
That is an awesome question. Yeah.
But a difficult one to answer, because I got into it from print journalism as a photographer and journalist, really. Basically, kind of those two occupations ran in parallel, really, and I got into it, as I mentioned earlier, just by the fact that an opening came up at Eurosport, so I went in as a substitute, and I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. In fact, that year, 1991, was the year that, sorry to go back to off-road again, but it was the year that Team Green Kawasaki won the British Open Championship with a very skilled kid called Jeremy Watley. And the guy at Kawasaki UK, Alec Ace Boss Wright, Uncle Alec, who was a dear friend, he knew me obviously as a guy who took photographs and wrote, really, and he asked me to voice over a video, as it was then, a VHS that they put together of Jeremy winning that championship. So he was the first guy to actually kind of get me to record something like that. And he went round saying to people, you know, Jake's really the business of this, you know what I mean? And you know, that obviously, that helped. Just that that bit of encouragement, really, from back there than from people listening to Uncle Alex. So you never know where the opportunity is going to come from, really. I think that must have had some effect.
Because I would love to get into it in the future, you know what I mean? I'm rough around the edges, but you can smooth that job out, you know what I mean?
It's a bit like the racer where you've got to slow down. Rough around the edges can be smoothed out a bit, you know. If you can talk a lot and enjoy talking and talk some sense.
Yeah, that's the problem. You know, it's definitely the sense bit. You know what I mean? It's 100% the sense bit. But there we go. But it's no, that was a cracking question by Mel Mind. That was good. To be honest, you hit play. I'm thinking this could be anything.
I was impressed by the sound of the rain in the wet, because on that west side of Canada, rather as we have on the west side of the UK, it can get pretty damp. And of course, the west side of Canada is where Future West came from. The guy who promoted Supercrosses in England. I used to work for him on the mic, you know, when we did the Sheffield Supercrosses and then spread out to do the Millennium Stadium down in Cardiff and the London O2 Arena and other places, Belfast, and there was a guy from British Columbia, the west coast side of Canada, who organised them. They were, you know, they were a bit sketchy at times, but they got Supercross on the map in indoor stuff in the UK, and he got McGrath over for McGrath to ride his first race on a Yamaha when he just changed to Yamaha after that misspent season on Suzuki. Yeah. He got McGrath, and McGrath came over, and there was a fabulous, violent race final, main event involving McGrath, a returning Damon Bradshaw, who was a real hero of mine, and Larry Legs Ward. And they absolutely went tooth and nail, and eventually finished. Larry won it on the last lap from McGrath and Bradshaw. And that was an epic. That was one of those. What Hagen Carfish would call a lemonade race that meant nothing to anybody, to a championship or anything like that. It was a meaningless event that produced a fantastic race. It was really
that's what
good.
It's about.
That was in Sheffield, and it was also in Sheffield that we. The Interval Entertainment, we had the first backflip in the UK by Mike Metzger, and I remember him. Really, I was right underneath it. I remember he told me that he'd give me a certain sign as he rolled behind me to let me know that the next attempt would be. He wasn't just having a pretend one; he was going to flip it. Yeah.
Do you remember Carrie Hart doing it? The first one in competition.
Yes. Yeah.
That was I sat down with my mother to watch that. I'm like that, Mum, someone's going to do a backflip on the motorcycle. They're not, son. Mother, like, you know, very stern at that age, very stern like that, going, Mother, take a seat. And even my own mother went, stood up. I've never seen.
Really?
But the thing is, the control flips now. I've done a backflip on a motorbike since then, you know.
Have you?
Like sugar.
What and lived?
No, on a pit bike. It was Sugar Tits' pit bike, but I did it, right? Anyway,
well done.
But I remember watching this on Carrie Hart, but they dug it out of a landing, right? So he had a big ski jump for a land, so there wasn't any gap or nothing.
Oh, I see.
Carrie Hart, well, this is the Carrie Hart jump, and he just went up and up and up, and the mud guards like broke. There was like no real elegance to the idea of it. It was just go back and just lean, and he just leaned and he nearly did himself in totally. And you've got people like Travis Pastrana watching out on that, going, it just, that gate, that one jump changed freestyle. And just like you say, it just like echoed through motorsport, like in freestyle terms, massively after that. Massively. Yes. Oh, sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent about backflips there. I do apologise there. Carry on.
You might not want to.
You know, you reminded me of something then. It flipped into my head, and I thought, wow, that was a real highlight. And then it's gone again. And it was a real highlight.
I'm going to get a lot of hate mail after this now.
So sometime when I remember, I'll let you know what it was.
Oh, God. Sorry, Jack. Sorry, man.
It's all right.
I was going to say, we've got this game, which you might not want to have a go, but I'll show you anyway. It's we've got like a leaderboard, and it's dead simple. You just go like this and then squeeze as hard as you can, like that.
So we've got a Top Gear-esque leaderboard.
So basically, you get two goals.
Well, it's a test of strength.
Well, it's just a bit of fun, really. But
have you seen my arms? There's absolutely nothing to them.
Piss off! You've got half a gallon of like Guinness running through you with all that iron in you.
I'll move this out the way.
Okay.
And then, in fact, yeah, if you put your arms out. So if you put your arms out straight like that,
Right.
yeah, like that, and then.
God, I can only just hold it up. Never mind.
What did Zoe get? Well,
Right, here we go.
ready? So.
Zoe.
Yeah, Zoe Bird's done
She's
it.
built like a brick shit house. She'd be able to beat me. She'd beat me to pulp on something like this. I don't stand a chance.
So, ready? So 3, 2, 1, go on, squeeze as hard as you can. Go on.
Where are you?
Go on.
Hey, it's going up.
It
Good lad.
keeps going. That'll do.
That'll do, my man.
We got up to 7 on that one. I think Zoe got like 4.
We're 7.
Awesome.
I think Zoe got 4. So yeah.
7.
I'm not being funny. That just went up, and I'm going, Jesus Christ, easy.
Kept going up.
Well,
You've been having Viagra's with your team. It just kept going up and up and up and up.
no, get off. That's going to be your lowest score. Oh, it's done my arms in now.
Yeah, you're gonna go. What the hell's happening in that trailer?
And there was something that I was going to say, and it's completely slipped. And I bet you I remember it. As soon as I'm released from here, I'll remember what it was that was a true highlight.
What I'm going to get
I'll tell you what, when we were at the Millennium Stadium, one thing that we did combined. John Hellam was the man from the west coast of Canada, and his son, who used to come over and organise those events. And the Millennium Stadium, we've got 20,000 people in, which wasn't big for the Millennium Stadium, but because they blanked out the lower bleachers so as to keep it safe, so that it felt full. It felt quite full. And typical John, he said, because the stadium was so big, and we were able to use the whole of it, he said he wanted to do a super motard as well. And could I get a celebrity supermoto kind of a supermoto guest list together? Not just supermoto racers, but others. So I got, as well as the regular supermoto guys who I knew because I was back then I was commentating the Supermoto British Championship stuff. That was Christian Inn was a kid that first winning championships then, and I got people like Carl Bomber Harris, lovingly remembered. Carl Harris and Rob Warner from the world of BMXing and of downhill mountain biking and stuff like that. And I managed to get them all together. Poor old Rob broke his ankle, poor lad. He wasn't best pleased with me. But and David Knight also joined in, as well as Andy Mitchell, for example, who was one of the top supermoto guys, the guy from... Anyway, it was great. So they organised a supermoto track that weaved in and used a bit of the supercross track as well. And absolutely typical, Knight won it on the last corner by flattening Andy Mitchell, who wasn't too pleased. But also, at the end of the supercross main event... And I remember this has occurred to me because at the Tough One Extreme Enduro Cup that I did a couple of weeks ago, he showed up there. Jason Rennie, who was a top AMCA expert, you won't have ever heard of him. He was setting World Guinness Book of Record long jumps then.
All right.
He had the world long jump outdoor record. He had the world long jump record with a pillion passenger. And we were going for a world indoor record because we had the space to do it.
Yeah.
2 huge ramps and Jason set a new world indoor record for the Guinness Book of Records there in front of 20,000 people in the Millennium Stadium. I remember as he soared over my head and landed, I just had this split second where I hadn't realised he'd opened a gate in the wall of the side of the stadium, and was going to have to get through that gate and go up a staircase right up towards the back of the arena, and the staircase had been laid out with flat plywood, so it went. And I just for a split second I thought he's going to kill himself, and then he went straight through this gap and brought this CR500 Honda to a halt 3/4 of the way up the slope. It was the noise was deafening. It was absolutely fantastic. Proper job. That proper job. Very brave. And that was. And he turned up watching us. This is a lovely thing about people. People you don't expect to just turn up to watch something because they happen to be around. I mean, he lives in North Wales. That's where he came from. But that was good. That was very nice to see him. But just remember that moment. I'll tell you what was definitely an absolute highlight was when we were in Belfast doing Matt Bates organised Supercross, that was, and it was the same day that George Best died in London in the Royal Cromwell, was it? Royal Brompton Hospital in Cromwell Road in London. George Best had passed away that day. And we were running Friday night and Saturday night. And towards the end of the first evening, Matt said, Jack, we're getting a lot of people want to say, why aren't you saying something about Bestie? I didn't. He's an absolute legend in Belfast. Absolute legend. Boy from the council in Black Council Estates of Belfast. And so we had to do a minute silence, but we had to build up to it first. Well, when I was on postgrad in Manchester, I used to go to Old Trafford, and George Best, I remember a night there when Manchester United beat West Bromwich Albion in 7-1, and Best had scored a couple of goals. But anyway, I said to Matt, well, there is a story I can relate that we could use. And so I set off without really knowing what I was going to say. And there was 5,000 or 6,000 people packed into this stadium in Belfast. And when I mentioned his name, they absolutely brought the house down. I mean, it was really extraordinary noise. And then when we went on to the minute silence, absolutely silent, absolutely could have truly heard a pin drop. Nothing happened. It was just eerie until Matt. I'd said to Matt, I haven't got a watch. I don't know what minute prize. You'll have to stand down there and let me know when the minute's up. And as soon as I said thank you, the place erupted again. God, it was. I mean, we did it the next night to similar effect, but it didn't have quite the same effect on me because I'd just been so shocked by the eruption the first time. It was incredible. And that was a proper highlight. That was. I mean, the coincidence that you happened to be there in Belfast, in that stadium on the dockside at Belfast the day he passed away is just ridiculous. And yeah, I didn't realise that Belfast cared that much and would be, even though he was wasted by then through alcohol abuse and all sorts, that it would mean that much,
Yeah.
But it did.
Mm. True mark of a man, that, isn't it?
Yeah. And do you have? I know we've sort of touched on bucket list earlier, but is there anything maybe nothing to do with the sport or nothing to do with the job? Is there anything that you'd like tick off the bucket list? Have you got anything that like in the next few years you would really love to do?
I'd like to get back across to the North Yorks Moors and do a bit more walking over there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I haven't really done that since my mother was my great walking companion, and since she died, she got up to 97, and she was always. I mean, we were still walking the North Yorks Moors when she was 94. But
Okay.
I'd like to get back there and do a bit more of that. I love living here on the banks of the Mersey, and it's a very fine place to be. But you're quite a long way from just hills and moorland.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do what Billy Bolt told me, that the reason he became so good on grouse moors was because as a lad of 11 and 12, he used to ride round after the Scott trial and help to clear up people who'd broken down and things like that and shepherd them home. We learned a lot about how people kind of zip tied bikes together and got them back to base and stuff like that, Yeah.
Because I've heard him on I think it was on his podcast actually, he was talking, his dad always takes a big welder to every enduro.
Because he breaks so many frames.
and it's almost to the point where he's chuffed if he snaps a frame because he gets to use his welder and put it back together. With his, have you ever done like sort of Helvellyn or Cat Bells or anything like
Yes.
that? The lovely walks.
Yes to both of them. Yes.
We're lucky that we live like relatively close.
I've done a lot. My sister and brother-in-law are big walkers, so I was often those two and my mum who used to go out different places together, and it would be more their organisation that would get us to places like the lakes and Wales and stuff. Yeah.
Do you know what Airbnb is?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get some beautiful little sort of beautiful stay vacation sort of things
Yes,
in the
yeah.
North Yorkshire moors. And if you just fancy a sort of a night away and go sort of walking it, there's some cracking places.
I'm waiting for all these motorsport fans on the North Yorkshire moors going, he'll be here any day. I'm going to get to see my mate Jack.
I'd like to do
some nudists from here like that.
I did once get greeted when I climbed the Rosebery topping to scatter my mum's ashes because that's what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And just as I crested the summit of Rosebery topping, this voice said, "Hello, Mr. Burnicle," and it was a guy called Jack Galloway who was a trials rider who I'd never really met. I didn't really know. He obviously either somehow recognised me. But anyway, I contacted.
Were you commentating on your walk on the way up? We lost a footing.
Yeah, could easily have done. When I mentioned it to my friend John Watson, who lives at Castleton in North Yorkshire, and he used to be a rider back in the day, and I got a text back from John that just said, "Jack Galloway. Aye, a nice bloke, except when competing." And that says so much about you guys and the way you are. Really nice lads, except when competing. And then once out on track, any track, anything goes.
It goes, get the gum shield on, off you go. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I don't want this to end. I'm not going to lie. I do not want this to end. And just keep going. Keep going. You ask us a question.
Tell me, how much weight have you lost since we last did one of these?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Well, I tell you what, you look chiseled and well. You do look completely different, so the Irish girl must be doing you some good. Let's hope they found somewhere decent to eat. Did you recommend somewhere decent?
Yeah, there's plenty. I'm like the local tour guide, aren't I, for Newcastle, so I give them a few good suggestions. Speaking about,
where can you take a good-looking woman? Right, ring Chrissy.
Speaking about appearances as well, I'm so jealous. Every time I've seen you this year, you've got sporting a beautiful tan, your long hair. You look so you look very. You've had a very sort of European look about you this year.
You look like a twat.
That's strange you should say that, because I was singing in two carol concerts midweek, Wednesday, Thursday, and singing bass. That's all I can do is sing bass. Can't sing very high. And there's a lady who's amongst the sopranos there, who a very posh lady from West Kirby, only the posh people. No, from Caldy, which is even posher, right over on the other side of the world. And she has a place in Italy, in a village in Italy, and apparently there's a gentleman over there who is a dead ringer for me in the village with the hair, and he's called Luigi. So she's christened me Luigi. She calls me Luigi. So I'll have to live with that now for a bit.
What's the plan with the hair? Or are you just going to keep growing?
Well, if I go out and have it cut, I won't be allowed back in the house, and I'd be a waif and stray out on the street. So at the moment I've got no option but to leave it. And I think, because my grandson Otis and my son-in-law Dave have both got kind of top knots, if you like. They've both got great hair because they've kind of during lockdown it grew. I mean, Dave looks great. He looks like Jesus blooming Christ, He looks absolutely great. The beard as well. And Gabe wants it to be long enough to tie back and knot up. In fact, she just about is, and she did try it the other day, but I didn't have the nerve to leave the house.
Understandable. There we go.
I said, no, I'll go out with it like this when I'm with Dave and Otis, but not before.
You need backup.
Yes, I need backup.
You need backup. 100%.
I can't do this single-handed.
Absolutely brilliant. But I tell you what, I'm gutted to say this, but we're gonna have to call that a night, and we're definitely getting you back on.
Listen,
100%, we're getting you back on. You're not escaping the microphone forever. Not a bleeding hope. We're getting you back.
Okay. Well, this was out of nowhere, for Christ's sake. And what sort of time do you lads get home? It used to take me a good 2.25 hours to get up to Teesside from here.
It'd be about 3.5 hours for us, I think.
And what time is it now? Again, I still haven't got a watch.
9:15.
Oh, blimey, you're going to be late tonight.
He was being polite there. He was singing Strictly Sober. Bollocks. These lads have turned up at me door, ruined Strictly, drank me coffee.
So will you just have a little kip in tomorrow morning, or do you?
No, I'm off trials riding first thing in the morning. So I'm actually back over. So we'll go up across the 66, and then I'm back over first thing in the morning going jazz riding, and then I've got
too short, Jack.
busy few days. I'm down at Boasty's flat. Have you ever know Peter Boast?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm there on Tuesday. Richard, do you know Richard Stedman? Can you remember him?
Yes.
Yeah, he's steady. He raced in British Super Sport. I'm staying
Best
at his
mates
house.
with Alexander.
That'll be Alexander Lund. Yeah. No, Andrew. Listen, so are you going to go flat tracking when you go down to Boasty's place?
Tuesday, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and
there's no stopping you guys hurting yourselves somehow, is there? Really?
This I haven't actually announced this, and I don't know if I don't know if it is announceable.
Hopefully, it's going to be official.
Me and Dom are do you know the London Excel show?
Yes.
Yeah. So the
Oh, are you going to race the short track there?
Yeah, me Dom are doing that.
They've stopped using me for that. What a shame! I'd love to be down there.
I tell you, can we not have a word and try and get you on there for the commentary? That would be great. Because then we could go out on the night. We could go out in London on the night time.
Fred's done it and Barry Nutley's done it. Yeah, well, the last time we went out, I think was it the last time I was there? No, the time before. We went out on the town in the East End of London. Well, on the town in the East End of London, and we had there was Michael Dunlop and Witt and Philip McCallan and some others, and we left Michael there because he'd really got into the ale. He was really going for it, and he's going to be up late and with the gallivanting with the company. So me and Phil McCallan and Witt went back because I can't drink before I'm working. I can't hack it at all. And we got ourselves a cab, and a black London cab, and he punctured. He suffered a puncture. He said, I'm going to have to drop you off, boys. I've got a rear flat. I've got a puncture. That's no problem. You can imagine. Oh, that's no problem, says Witt. Get the spare wheel out, get it jacked up. And then Philip, bless him, started complaining about, I've got a bad back, I can't really. So he was kind of only half helping. And I was as much use as a lump of chocolate, really. I wasn't really helping out. But so Witt did the major part of the job. But the fella was... I was explaining to them, well, this fella's won 11 TTs and this fella's been British Superbike champion, so they're used to this kind of thing, and we got back on the road again. So he very kindly let us off our fare when we got back.
That was my next question. Did you have to pay for the ride? Because that's terrible if you did.
I think we insisted on paying something, bless him, because he lost an awful lot of time. But yeah, it was good.
Before we wrap up, we did say we'd come back to it. Have you thought of if you could go and see any singer, band or musician that are playing at the moment? What sort of genre are you into? Like even
it's usually from way before you were born. You see, that's the problem. So fair few people. The one thing I'm absolutely emphatically not into is tribute bands. I cannot abide people pretending to be other people. I just don't see the point of it. I absolutely don't see the point of it. I remember being they have a thing called the Blue Room at the Floral Pavilion Theatre. So there's the major theatre itself, and then there's a smaller venue, the Blue Room. And we had Peter Asher, who was Jane Asher's brother, Peter and Gordon fame back from the 60s. And he was on with doing a kind of half talk, half music show with an amazing bloke called Albert Lee. Again, if you haven't heard, if you won't have heard of Albert Lee, but if you look him up, you must check him out. He is a most astonishing guitar player, as well as pianist and singer and that stuff. And they were on there, and a tribute band to Pink Floyd were packing the main arena, and we were all out in the bar that lies between the two, locking the two venues together, if you like. And I was so tempted to just say to them, do you realise we've got a real legend singing in there, and you were watching a bloody band of people pretending to be somebody else? I don't quite get it. I really don't get it. But they're obviously a popular thing, and there's loads of them about doing all sorts of different people. But the opportunity to see a genuine original is obviously a relative rarity.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Burnicle, the real McCoy. It rings a bell.
I did. Believe it or not, bizarrely, I was on the Isle Isle of Wight at the 1970 Rock Festival. I drove down on my Triumph Speed Twin, and that was Jimi Hendrix's last live performance when he stood up and played "God Save the Queen" in front of the astonished 250,000 of us who were there at the time. I remember that very well.
You've got the look sorted for a festival now, haven't you, with the long hair, top knot at the time.
Yeah.
You just
I don't think I'll be going to a festival now.
You're on in 5, Jack.
Listen,
what day are we on?
I only once, because we had a brief spell when we used to commentate from a studio in Drury Lane in Covent Garden, and but it was odd because you didn't really have any people, especially if you're doing a late night program. You'd be on your own. You'd hope everything worked, and you could even get in and get the lights on and things and make the place work. And I got there a bit early one evening, and I went and had a pint of lager shandy before I went on air to do a 1-hour trials program, and actually I was a bit loose, because I shouldn't have done it. I've never done it. I've never done it again. A pint of shandy, and I was like,
just so you get diverted by the crowd going, that was a good move. Have you seen the legs on that blonde in the third row? Anyway, back to the trial.
The trials didn't. Oh well, no, yeah, they had the ladies with the boards, of course, and the zeros on them, things like that. But it was just a little warning to me to I don't drink. I just don't drink all this up. A pint of shandy, I'd a bit fuzzy.
Good man.
I've not done that again.
Speaking of changes in the sport over the time you've been commentating, but that's one thing very sort of recently you mentioned about the ladies there is say the NEC a few years ago, every stand would have promotional ladies on.
Yes,
that's a thing of the past now in the UK.
Was that not the case?
No,
when you were at the NEC this time.
It's very
from like a pair of leather pants in sight.
From like the
not one pair, mate.
Yeah, it's completely changed. It's still, say the Milan show.
Yeah.
So the same manufacturers. So it's not it. Yeah, the same manufacturers have promotional girls in Milan, but in the UK, it's like I think any of the major brands get absolutely hammered if they have promotional girls, so none of them dare do it. And it's something. Do you know if you just went to the NEC like 5 years ago and then you went there this year? That's like one huge difference. With it depending on your opinion, you might think for progress, or if you might think otherwise, but it's just an observation. It's very different.
Yeah. Who had the best stand, do you think? Last time I was there, CCM with that Spitfire.
They were dominating that again. They did a very good job there. Very, very good job.
Big talking points. So Yamaha didn't take a stand, which was
didn't they?
No, which considering they've won everything this year, was quite surprising.
Yeah.
Because
they won the MX2 World Championship.
There we are. Yeah. So keep taking money there weren't there either.
Oh no,
that's what KTM stands for, by the way. Keep taking money.
The KTM had a stand.
Not really.
It wasn't.
Not to the grand scale.
I was a few weeks ago. I commentated on the first victory by an Austrian since Heinz Kinnegander won at Namur in 1987 in a motocross Grand Prix, René Hoffer, and he got killed a couple of weeks ago by an avalanche.
Never.
Him and a couple of his mates out skiing in Austria. And he was only 19, and he was a lovely kid.
Jesus.
On a he was Red Bull KTM's big hope in that sphere. So it just shows that you never know where lightning's going to strike or snow's going to strike.
I have mentioned this on the podcast before, so people might be a bit bored of the story, but my great grandma's Austrian. She's still alive. She's 92 at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'll just very quickly say the story because it is quite an amazing story. But so she was Austrian when she was about, I think, 18, 19. The Russians invaded her home, and our mum, basically the family had to go and live in the sort of cellar where the Russian soldiers took over the house.
Yes.
And in that town, all of the Russian soldiers were raping all of the women. And at the time, my great-grandma's mother was covered in psoriasis. It kind of runs in the family. Like, my sister gets it bad. And it was only the fact that she had psoriasis, she convinced the Russians that it was contagious. And that was the only reason they didn't rape her. And as the war came to the end, the British soldiers were in this occupying the sort of area. And my great granddad invited my great grandma for to a dance, and as the war was ending, he offered her to come over to the UK and basically start a new life. So she couldn't speak a word of English, and he offered to pay her for a transport to get back to the UK, and she left all of her family. And when you turn into my estate now, where we live, I live in I think the house is 25-year-old or 30-year-old, but there's an old street, the first house you come to, they moved into that house. So
Really?
I can see it from where I live.
Is this in Burnupfield?
Yeah, in Hobson.
She wished she was back
She
in
went for
Oxford.
And she moved in, and the rest,
I left that for this.
the rest history. And now there's five. She's got full 5 generations. So she's got my gran, I call her, but it's my great grandma, down to my granny, my mum, my sister, and my sister's baby. So baby Betsy's got a great.
This is an older sister than the 15-year-old who edits film for you.
Correct.
Yeah,
my
Grace there. She's got her work cut out.
My sister Katie, she's 30. But yeah, it's
Blimey, your family's spread out, isn't it? It's an amazing that make the most of it. Find out all the sorts of stories she can. I was working on doing that with my mum. I was really kind of got to know more about the family. And also, just a few weeks ago, I actually did have a trip across the Pennines, one of those trips where the weather turns dramatically drier and clearer when you cross the Saddleback Moor. And it was to York for the funeral of a man I only discovered 10 years ago, a cousin of my mum's called John Feasby, lovely name, and because my mum was originally Isabella Feasby, and he was 101. Wow. So I learned quite a lot about our family history on that limb of the family from him being around and getting to see him a few times.
Yeah. York's a beautiful place, mind, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely stunning place.
He'd been a primary school head teacher there for 30 years. Bless him. So he'd been he'd retired at 63 and then went on forever after that. Yeah,
incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's good to have really, really old people around and get to know what they've done in the Second World War and all sorts of shit, Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah. I tell you, this is completely different to any podcast we've done. I'm really enjoying it. I don't want to end it.
I don't want to end it.
We could sit and talk all night, but we'll have another catch up sometime next year.
Definitely. But you've got to be up early tomorrow morning to go trials riding. And whereas are you up early tomorrow morning?
Cutting trees, back to work. Oh, back to work, me.
On a Sunday?
Oh, aye.
Oh, yeah, advertising your sidekick, or is you keeping that quiet?
My sidekick?
Everyone's got your side business. Or is that keeping quiet for now?
No, the side hustle.
Side hustle.
It's not selling logs.
Oh, it's just started a little business.
There was a bit on. I'm not remotely addicted to Countryfile. Don't get me wrong, but I just happened to see there was this lady doing a fairly major visit to the Kielder Forest, and it
used to be twice the size till I got there.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Are you responsible? In fact, they decapitate about 5,000 trees a day there. Wow. It's incredible. And the rest.
That's it. That's a slow day. That's after a couple of pints, Jack.
Do you ever work in the Kielder Forest?
Oh God, yeah.
Really?
I'm cursed to that place. Cursed.
It looks incredible.
Oh, it's a beautiful part of the world, man. Beautiful part. Honestly, you know what?
So I can see why you'd have that fir tree behind my house down in 20 minutes.
Not a bother, son. Not a bother. Cash is king. We'll talk. But no, you know what? It's hard work, but I'm very lucky to have that job. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You've got to be fit and able to do it. It's hard work, and you want to get home and go to sleep. But that pin drop thing, I have that every day at work.
Really?
Just stack it. When I put my saw down, sharpen it, put it down, and you have 5 minutes of utter. It's just
absolute peace.
Riverbecks and moss that is lovely. It is just unbelievably green, and you've got nothing to pester you, but literally deer walking behind you.
Yes.
I mean, I've worked in some beautiful places, and that's the good thing about working in the forest.
That's fabulous.
And then the phone goes, and I'll say, "I've got Jack on the podcast. We just need to go down to Liverpool."
Yeah, get yourself going.
Cheers, mate.
You thought you were having a relaxing Saturday. Just you
Oh,
wait.
that's it.
Never.
Never a moment to breathe.
But we'll wrap things up. Honestly, it's been such a pleasure coming down to see you. And
I didn't know what we were going to talk about.
I know, but yes, it really is lovely to see you. This will go out after Christmas, but I hope you and the family have a fantastic Christmas.
Thank you very
much. All the best for the new year,
and the same to you.
Massive thank you to our patrons and our sponsor Colchester Kawasaki. Look forward to catching up next week. But thanks ever so much, Jack.
Yeah, and all the best to Mr. Gregory as well at Colchester Kawasaki.
You'll appreciate
Hope
that.
to see him again.
Oh, you smooth operator there. There we go. But honestly,
Lovely to see you guys. Have a great time over the festive season. It's the right word, I believe. Whatever you're doing, enjoy it.
brilliant.
Excellent.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
and good luck next year.
Thank you.
No,
Take care.
yeah, put it there, Jack. Thank you very much, my man. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Catch you in a bit.
Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the two-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasing the Racing.